Hi readers, it's Miss Heckathorn. Today we're going to use our Making Connections Thought Jot Tracker. When we make connections to a text, there are 4 different types of connections we can make. We can make text-to-self connections, where a part of a story reminds us of something that has happened in our own world. We can make text-to-text connections, where something in the text reminds us of something else we've read in another book. We can make text-to-world connections, where something that happens in the story reminds us of something that has happened in the world around us or to other people that we know. And finally, we can make text-to-media connections, where we read something that reminds us of something we've seen in a movie, seen on TV, heard in a song, all of those media type connections. So I'm excited to share some of my connections that I've made with a story called Rocks and Boxin' by Alice McLaren. Now, as you're listening to the story, when you hear something that reminds you of something that's happened in your life, either a text-to-text, a text-to-self, a text-to-world, or a text-to-media connection, go ahead and pause the video and jot that down so that you have your own connections that you're making as well. All right, let's get started, and I can't wait to share my connections with you. Marion called it Rocks and Boxin'. She always knew the name of everything. There across the road it looked like any rocky hill, nothing but sand and rocks, some old wooden boxes, cactus and greasewood, and thorny ocotillo. But it was a special place. The street between Rocks and Boxin' and the houses curved like a river, so Marion named it the River Road. After that, you had to ford a river to reach Rocks and Boxin'. Having to ford the river road reminds me of playing Oregon Trail on the computer when I was a kid. In the game, my characters had to cross rivers to continue their journey west. So I made a text-to-media connection that I bet some of your parents might know too. Of course, all of Marion's sisters came. Anna May and Frances and little Jean, Charles from next door, even though he was 12. Oh, and Eleanor, naturally. And Jamie with his brother Paul. Later on there were others, but these were the first. Well, not really the first. Rocks and Boxin' had always been there, and must have belonged to others, long before. Well, I have a very, very special text-to-self connection that I want to share. Rocks and Boxin' is a special place where Marion and her friends play, and I had a special place as a child too. I had a stone wall that was along the sidewalk a block away from my house. My dad and I would go there and play, and in my imagination that wall was anything that I wanted it to be, just like Rocks and Boxin' was that special place for the children. That stone wall was my special place when I was growing up. So that is a text-to-self connection. When Marion dug up a tin box filled with round black pebbles, everyone knew what it was. It was buried treasure. Those pebbles were the money of Rocks and Boxin'. You could still find others like them if you looked hard enough. So some days became treasure hunting days, with everybody trying to find that special kind. And then on other days, you might just find one without even looking. A town of Rocks and Boxin' began to grow, traced in lines of stone, Main Street first, edged with the whitest ones, and then the houses. Charles made his of the biggest stones. After all, he was the oldest. At first the houses were very plain, but soon they began to add more rooms. The old wooden boxes could be shelves or tables or anything you wanted. You could find pieces of pottery for dishes. Round pieces were the best. Well, this gives me a text-to-world connection. The way the children created their town of Rocks and Boxin' makes me think of how the settlers started making their towns and villages when they came to America. So that is a text-to-world connection. Later on, there was a town hall. Marion was mayor, of course. That was just the way she was. Nobody minded. Marion makes me think of some other characters I know about. Characters like Grace from Amazing Grace and Lily from Lily's Purple Plastic Purse. Both of those characters and Marion are very imaginative and creative and natural-born leaders. So this is a text-to-text connection. After a while, they added other streets. Frances moved to one of them and built herself a new house outlined in desert glass. Bits of amber, amethyst, and sea green, a house of jewels. And because everybody had plenty of money, there were plenty of shops. Jean helped Anna May in the bakery, pies and cakes and bread baked in the warm sun. There were 2 ice cream parlors. Was Paul's ice cream the best, or Eleanor's? Everybody kept trying them both. In Roxenboxen, you can eat as much ice cream as you want. Everybody had a car. All you needed was something round for a steering wheel. Of course, if you broke the speed limit, you had to go to jail. The jail had cactus on the floor to make it uncomfortable, and Jamie was the policeman. Anna May, quiet little Anna May, she was always feeding. You'd think she'd like to go to jail. But if you had a horse, you could go as fast as the wind. There were no speed limits for horses, and you didn't have to stay on the roads. All you needed for a horse was a stick and some kind of bridle, and you could gallop anywhere. Sometimes there were wars. Once there was a great war, boys against girls. Charles and Marion were the generals. The girls had Fort Irene, and they were all Girl Scouts. The boys made a fort on the other end of Roxenboxen, and they were all bandits. Oh, the raids were fierce, loud with whooping and the stamping of horses. The whirling swords of Ocotillo had sharp thorns, but when you reached your fort, you were safe. I have a text-to-self connection here. The words that the children had remind me of playing Capture the Flag at summer camp. So that's a text-to-self connection. Roxenboxen had a cemetery, too, in case anyone died, but the only grave in it was for a dead lizard. Each year when the cactus bloomed, they decorated the grave with flowers. Sometimes in the winter, when everybody was at school and the weather was bad, no one went to Roxenboxen at all, not for weeks and weeks. But it didn't matter. Roxenboxen was always waiting. Roxenboxen was always there. And spring came, and the Ocotillo blossomed, and everybody sucked the honey from its flowers, and everybody built new rooms, and everybody decided to have jeweled windows. That summer, there were 3 new houses on the east slope, and 2 new shops on Main Street. And so it went. The seasons changed, and the years went by. Roxenboxen was always there. The years went by, and the seasons changed, until at last the friends had all grown tall, and one by one they moved away, to other houses, to other towns. So you might think that was the end of Roxenboxen. But oh no. Because none of them ever forgot Roxenboxen. Not one of them ever forgot. Years later, Marion's children listened to stories of that place and fell asleep dreaming dreams of Roxenboxen. Gray-haired Charles picked up a black pebble on the beach and stood holding it, remembering Roxenboxen. More than 50 years later, Frances went back, and Roxenboxen was still there. She could see the white stones bordering Main Street, and there where she had built her house, the desert glass still glowed, amethyst, amber, and sea green. What a wonderful story. Even at the end, the characters had some connections they made to Roxenboxen. I hope you were able to make a few text to anything connections, text to self, text to text, text to world, and text to media connections. Please share them on our TAC. I'd love to see them. Thanks for joining me. Keep making connections, and as always, Keep reading.